Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Now, everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show.
It may well possess a rudimentary intelligence.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Felt a great disturbance in the force.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Come on, bark like a dog for me.
Where's the goodies? Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
I bet you wouldn't have done anything like this if Mom and Dad were here.
You filthy criminal.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Here are your hosts, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
Got family game night on the brain? When you bring home new Monopoly Championship Edition, you set the playtime and then tally the score.
Time's up. Add 'em up.
So this week's trophy winner
Enjoy it while it lasts.
is next week's player to beat.
Welcome to Everything Old is New again. This is Douglas Viviani with the rather competitive David Cohen.
Yes.
Why are you competitive? What are you competitive about?
I'm competitive about a lot of things, like the way you spelled competitive in the script here. You've spelled it wrong.
Well,
I win because I know how to spell it correctly. This is a great show. I'm looking forward to this one. Why? Why am I?
I don't know. You have a little bit of a cold or something? How's your voice there? Sounds.
I screamed my voice out on the way here. I had a kind of a meltdown. But let's not get into that now.
Listen, the Hasbro family game night has taken on a new life, I think. Sort of an underground. In 2011, they ran commercials and started to run commercials about it. Have you heard of this family game night? I know you have a son that's 18, a little older, but basically what they're doing and what they tried to do, and they even had a TV game show called Family Game Night on the Hub and Discovery Channel. Board games are returning. Hasbro is the king of board games, and they're trying to get things rolling and say, listen, it's time to put down the social media, time to have your kids sit around a table with you, the adults, or just maybe the kids together and the adults can go off and have a glass of wine and relax for once maybe, and have some fun.
You're doing that, right? You and your family.
Yes, we have a bunch of games, and we're going to play games today on the air as well, and next week. I want to explore toys. I want to explore board games. The sales, believe it or not, of board games and puzzles have grown just in the last year from $9.3, I'm going to say this word properly now, $billion, not a million, $1 billion on these little board games, to $9.6 billion, to $9.8 billion in this year. So it's growing, billions of dollars. So it's something that's a phenomenon that I don't think is being...
It's a what?
A phenomenon. I don't think it's being really addressed. So, of course, on Everything Old is New again, we're going to address the unaddressable. And we're going to do that with yet another friend of the show, a gentleman that knows us from high school. We're not going to say the year, but it's probably from when the board game was invented first. And we went to Half Island Hills High School East. We'll put a shout-out there for our alumni. He's a gentleman who's the newest member of our Rogues Gallery, a vintage toy and game aficionado, none other than Dan Neuburger. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Doug. David, good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
It's been a long time.
It has, but I'm glad you brought your toys with you.
Well, thank you. So I don't go anywhere without them.
First, you have children that are in their 20s now.
I do.
So you missed, in theory, the Hasbro whole, would you say, reorganization of their company to go ahead and approach this market and go head on against social media and against the tablets. So, but what did you do with them 15 years ago?
Yeah, so I kept a lot of my old games and toys and tried very much to encourage my children to play with them because I thought they were cool when I was growing up. They really wanted no part in it because if it didn't have an electronic capability or you couldn't interact electronically with it, they just really weren't all that interested in using it. But we missed that because, you talk about the comeback of the family night, and it's a challenge, particularly when my kids were growing up, it was a challenge to have everybody sitting around the table playing a game. We would play things like Scrabble, right? Because we thought it was a good idea to teach the kids, more about the English language, not a bad skill to have.
And yourself at the same time.
And myself, right? And I would invariably get beaten by my children when they were 6 or 7 years old, which is not a good sign.
So let me get it straight, though. You were combating the idea of playing electronic games with a spelling test. I don't know if that really works, but okay. I'm just kidding.
Actually,
I'm kidding with it.
So oddly enough, Scrabble actually does have an electronic game, which I play all the time. Right?
See that?
So I think all of these games, they were and still are great games, but the dynamic is a bit different now that you play a lot of these games either by yourself against somebody remotely, or you play against the computer. It's not the same as sitting across the table from somebody and actually interacting with them more than just in the game. So.
Right. And some of those games, I'm going to go through, try to rack your brain. Again, this is old as new again. These games are out and about everywhere. You're seeing them advertised. But I'm going to throw a little bit of an old 1969 advertisement for Battleship action. See if you remember this.
Milton Bradley's great game of strategy.
Great quality.
It's loaded with action and suspense.
J1. Oh, you missed. J10. Oh, you struck my battleship.
Battleship, a game of strategy from Milton Bradley.
There you go. I like the little laugh of that kid.
You sunk
Were there
my battleship.
seagulls? Did I hear that? Were they playing outside somewhere?
It's such great quality.
They were actually watching the battleships blowing up out in the harbor.
Did you play that game? Was that one of that?
God, of course we did. Yeah, I mean, games like Stratego and Battleship, anything that had to do with war, for some reason, when we were young, that was like the in thing.
Right.
In fact, I remember in the 70s, it was in California. That was when they first started to introduce laws stopping toy manufacturers from introducing guns and toys that were considered to be violent. But Battleship was huge when we were growing up.
You were telling us a little bit before the show about where it came from. It was very interesting.
I think everybody always looks back with this nostalgic perspective of, oh, well, toys were always better when I was little. But ironically, the game Battleship actually was a derivative of another game that, as I understand it, was developed after the First World War, and the game was actually played on a piece of paper in an 8x8 grid where the two people would each have their own piece of paper, and you would map out a blank grid that you could then track where the other guy's ships were, and you would lay out your ships on the other grid so that you knew where they were. And it was the same thing across the top. It was numbers, and down the vertical side was letters. So, A1 obviously was the upper left-hand corner. And it was played exactly the same way. I didn't realize that until fairly recently when I was looking up the history of the game Battleship, which I'm sure not a lot of people do, other than nerds like me. But
well, that shows you that everything old is new again, because that game had to be around, maybe, what would you say, World War I, around that age, or 30s, 40s?
I think it was late 20s was when that game became...
And then Milton Bradley comes along, and it almost looks like they've created this game that existed in the pop culture before.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is pretty cool. Disney's done that with a number of their princesses, right? They've reestablished and recreated those princesses in the movies in their own likeness, right? So why not do it with toys?
Yeah, in fact, some games, and I'm sure we're going to get into a conversation about yo-yos, but yo-yos, interestingly, actually date back to the ancient Greeks.
We're going to actually learn some yo-yo tricks down the line on the air. Before we do that, let's take a look at Operation, my little 4-year-old's favorite.
Here's your patient. You take a card.
Remove funny bone.
Careful, if you touch the sides. You blew it, Charlie. Next.
Take out Randy Danko.
A winner. Operation. An electric game from Milton Bradley.
How annoying is that little girl, Deanne? Ha, 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 that she won the game, if you remember that.
That game turned me off to wanting to become a doctor.
You know what they have now? The makers, I'm trying to think who that is. I think it's Milton Bradley as well. Maybe it's Hasbro. It's a Hasbro, actually. They've repurposed them, and they've got a Jake and the Neverland Pirates operation and other Disney type of, I think Monopoly's done this too, where they're changing the game's the same, but the format in terms of what's on the screen. It's not some guy just sitting there being operated on. Now it's Jake and the Neverland Pirates, and you're trying to get treasures and different things like that.
That guy had a name, by the way.
What was his name?
I have no idea. It was something Sam, but I know he had a name. I just don't remember.
I didn't
what it
mean
was.
to disrespect the operation figure. We'll be back on Everything Old is New again to dive into some of these games, play some of these games, have a little bit of a Everything Old is New again game day / night right here on the air on Everything Old is New again. And I don't know. I think you'll enjoy it. Come on back. We'll be back right here.
It's been a long road.
Least expected. Everything Old is New again. Pulls it out of the hat.
It's been a long time. My time is fine. I will see my...
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Now your BK Kids meal can come with BK Fresh Apple Fries and your very own Hasbro game, 6 in all, at Burger King.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. Little free advertising for Burger King there and their kids meal from back.
Is that new or is that old?
That was about 3 or 4 years ago. With the kids meal, they gave away little miniature Hasbro games in support of family game night. And some of them, believe it or not, they they certainly gave us a miniature of, I think it was Operation. A bunch of other ones. I think I can't remember all of them, but that was a lot of fun. And that's what we're here on Everything Old is New Again trying to have, is some fun. With David Cohen, with another member of the Rogues Gallery, Dan Neuburger himself.
It sounds very villainous.
And it's a term of endearment as we use it here on Everything Old is New Again. And we are going to try to explore the renaissance, if you will, of the board game. And one of them that we have right in front of us right now is called, anybody know the name of this one?
Don't Break the Ice?
Don't Break the Ice. Remember this one?
Yeah.
It's got a bunch of cubes, and it's surrounded by a blue, I guess you'd say,
like
frame.
A blue table frame, and it's filled in by neatly packed in plastic ice cubes.
There you go. Better than I could ever say. And what you try to do is you use this little bit of a hammer,
right,
and you take turns and you knock out
an ice cube,
each ice cube,
right,
and see whoever is the one that, I guess you'd say, releases the gentleman that's on top here from his perch is the one that loses the game.
It's actually a monkey on ice skates.
Is that what it is?
I believe so.
Dan,
I thought it was a penguin.
Dan, we're going to play the game. I'm going to do a little play-by-play.
I'm sorry,
possible.
it is a penguin. Wow.
Is it? That's what I remember it being.
Why would it be a monkey on ice skates?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Who has not seen a monkey on ice skates?
Or it's a penguin.
Right, I'm going to start going for the corner ice here. So.
All right, so now is that a good strategy? Goes for the corner and no
I think
problem.
It's a good strategy. Yeah.
That's done. Young David Cohen, your turn.
So you got to do the play-by-play here so people... Remember, Doug, they can't see this.
Didn't you hear that? I just did. I just said play-by-play.
All right, I'm going for the opposite corner.
All right. Wow, that's really... I don't know why it's so tight. Okay, Dan, try another one.
All right. Yeah, this may take a little time. We're going to speed this up a little.
All right, now I'm going to try another corner over here.
All right, going for the third corner's gone. Dan's got the fourth corner gone, and we
now
continue.
All 4 corners are knocked out, plus another one.
All right.
Here we go.
All right, that's the way.
Another
one little
smashed through by Cohen. Neuburger smashes one.
This is kind of like the Jenga concept, isn't it?
It's like
Cohen,
a reverse Jenga.
I got 2 down. So did Neuburger.
Okay.
So now this penguin is, or whatever he is,
skating on thin ice.
He's hanging by a thread.
All right, my turn.
All right, you just knocked out 4 at once. Oh, it's
bunch.
like almost like a cross now.
Right,
Looks like you got
I want to do the safe move here. Knock out
allegedly
these 2.
safe.
All
Okay.
right, so we got 2 on each side now that are holding this thing up.
It's going to happen.
The penguin is right in the middle of the cross.
Yeah, so you've got...
And that cross is thinning out as we speak.
Right, you've got 1 cube
a powerful
holding
move
it back.
by Dave Cohen.
It's unintentional.
And 2 sides of just 1 cube left. This is going to end very badly in a moment.
Very badly.
And David just
got it. I have to say, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that in about 1 move... I think you're going to be screwed.
I am. Unless you do something wrong.
It's all in the execution, though.
Now, there's no way, based on the way I understand...
one right here.
The way I understand physics, there's no way I can win.
No, actually...
this one here, sorry.
Isn't this
same concept.
Isn't this whole thing a big
look, right
square?
Here. One
this
more.
is not individual squares,
you have to play.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
This is one chunk of ice.
The penguin is standing on a square.
you're right.
So I'm going to lose. So I'm going to knock out one of the...
Well, if you're a 4-year-old, you still have hope. Let's see.
No, I don't.
And it did. There we go. All right. So David Cohen is the loser.
The penguin went for a dive.
And now, if I'm correct, Dan, what you told us before, this is the 50th straight win for you.
That's right.
Don't break the ice.
Today. Yeah, that's right.
Nice. We're going to continue on Everything Old is New again with another game that you may remember, and we played the ad for it already, Operation. The one we have here is not with the gentleman with the big bulbous red nose.
What is this?
This is an operation of a different ilk, if you will. It's Jake and the Neverland Pirates, which is a Disney cartoon. The way we did our show on Saturday morning cartoons, it's now a new Saturday morning cartoon that the kids love. So you're going to take out pieces of treasure or a sword. Or...
I see. So instead of taking out the funny bone, the leg bone, you're taking out a piece of treasure.
Exactly.
Without touching the sides.
Exactly. And you can't. Now, you can. Here's the thing with this game.
This is instantly not as fun. I just want to.
Well, it is if you stand in a bucket of water and you try and.
Well, listen, Jake is a very popular character. So if you're a kid that's 5 years old, this is a big hit. I got news for you.
Okay.
Nobody knows that big bulbous guy. Who is that? W.C. Fields and the other one? Who was that?
It does look like him. Yeah.
Something Sam. I wish I could remember his name. It was something Sam.
Wish he was more fully dressed.
Here's the key. Yes. Here's the key. You cannot lean your arm on the frame of the game. It has to be freehand as you're pulling these items out.
Okay.
That makes sense. So I'm going to take out the sword.
All right.
I'm actually
Viviani's
very
going
good
in.
at this game. There you go.
Yes.
Just so you know, can we hear?
Perfect.
You can hear that, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let me just on the air. Can you hear that? Yes. All right. So Dan, why don't you give it a shot? See which one you're going to get.
That's kind of ominous. All right, I don't know what it is that I'm picking out here.
He's
but
going for a telescope.
a telescope. Okay.
And he's really having trouble with that. All right. So you're good.
He did it.
David Cohen, why don't you? Usually you spin this thing. It tells you what to go for. But
spin it.
Take
what am I doing?
Take the I guess you call those coins. Take the coins out.
Bullion.
And he's standing up and does it beautifully. Look at this. See, I think for us, I think we're in good shape.
Guys, I was pre-med for one semester, so I have a slight advantage.
Very good technique.
I'm going to go for the steering wheel. What would you call this?
Yeah, the ship's wheel.
Oh, look at that! How nice!
Oh, very
A
nice.
steady hand.
All right. The
We have
pressure
three more left. Let's see who, if anyone.
I guess we're
has a
not
problem.
spinning the wheel, huh?
No.
All right.
All right. I don't know what this thing is either.
Is that a lobster?
That's an octopus. Takes the octopus out.
Wow.
A six-armed octopus.
I think we should try to play this like as a drinking game. Every one you get, you take a shot. So this way, sooner or later, your hand is not as steady. Look at this. He's going for the skull. There's a skull that David's going for, and
I thought I could pull it out by the eyes. I can't.
now there's trouble.
There's no way that thing's.
There you go. So,
that's not fair. Not fair.
all right, so David loses. Dan and I win. These are games that I think
You pushed my hand. That's
Oh, is that not allowed?
for younger kids. I think these are.
apparently it is allowed. I don't know.
There's another one that we have. I think everyone has talked about at one point or another. If you were born, let's say 1955 to 1980, you knew this game pretty good. In fact, I wanted this game, and Santa didn't bring it. So as a result, when I got older, and I had a son, the first thing I bought was this game.
You're slugging it out in the middle of the ring. And there's a hard drive to the top. And Blue Garment's lock is knocked off. His block is knocked off?
Sure, but you can press it right back on again. It's just part of the action with the world's only boxing robots, the Rock'em Sock'em Robots by Marx.
There you go. The Rock'em Sock'em Robots. You've seen this commercial lately. It's we're going to try to clear the field here of this prior game. It's supposed to make
the ice
sound.
cubes.
The ice cubes are going into the bag.
The Zamboni is out.
And Rock'em Sock'em's back. Actually, what we'll do is we'll continue in a few moments actually playing Rock'em Sock'em. But Dan, I think you've done a little research, believe it or not, on the game itself.
I did, and so interestingly, and I see that you actually have the version that has the names printed on the back. Their original names were the Red Rocker and the Blue Bomber. Pretty intimidating names, right? That was the names of the game when they first came out, I think in the late 60s. Some genius in marketing in the 1990s, in order to make the game a little bit more interesting, decided that the names of these characters should change. And so they came up with names, and I would ask you to guess, but you never in a million years will come up with these names. Again, this was some highly paid marketing guy that came up with the names Bob and Greg. Now it's a little bit better.
Wait, how many more do you have?
One is called Bolt Crusher Bob.
Okay.
And the other guy is now called Gear Grinder Greg instead of the Red Rocket and the Blue Bomber. Personally, I prefer the old school names. The new ones just don't do it for me.
No,
I don't know what like. Can you imagine that meeting where they said, "Hey, I got an idea. I want to change the names from the Red Rocker to Bolt Crusher Bob."
We'll be back right after this. Continue on Everything Old is New again, talking about board games and having some fun on Family Fun Night. Another Star Trek reference.
Now, back to America's entertainment pop culture talk show. Everything old is new again, with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
The G.I. Joe Sea Sled, the most sensational weapon your G.I. Joe Navy can have. There are simulated harpoons, maneuvering controls, even a radar screen. Diving planes down, and the Sea Sled dives underwater for a surprise.
Oh, boy, I got caught off. This is Everything Old is New Again, and that's a little commercial there back in the day from G.I. Joe, what do they call it, the diving sled, here with David Cohen and Dan Neuburger, talking about the resurgence of toys, board games, and, we'll talk about G.I. Joe and that kind of doll figurines for...
It was an action figure. It's not a doll. My father refused to call them dolls.
I must have had hundreds of G.I. Joes and all the accessories. It was great. In fact, this was when my parents knew that I was going to go into business. I had a sister who had Barbie dolls, because that was, of course, the huge, toy. It still is, I'm sure. And I had all these G.I. Joes. So I convinced my sister to sew a bed that we could put the Barbie and G.I. Joe in the hopes that I could make my own little baby dolls and sell them.
Wow.
It didn't work. For some reason, it didn't work. But that was my first entrepreneurial idea when I was very young. Just didn't work out the way I had hoped it would.
You were a businessman, not a scientist, not a biologist.
A mad scientist.
That's a good topic. Think about that. Leo is 4. I call figurines. He loves these little figurines you get all the time. Now you can get figurines of almost every comic character, whether it be Marvel. I'm not talking about little 6 to 3 inch figures, and he carries them around wherever he goes. Jake and the Neverland Pirate, whatever it might be. Every day he's got a different one he takes to school with him, and it gives him some comfort that this character.
You don't find
knows.
this to be a choking hazard at all for your son? It's the coolness trumps the.
Exactly.
The risk of him choking.
We all have to learn hard lessons in life. And so if he happens to take one of those and try to eat them.
He has Thor stuck in his throat.
Now, speaking of figurines, we have in front of us the 2, I guess they'll call them figurines, of the Rock'em Sock'em robots. The blue bomber against the red rocker. Red rocker. What were the new names, Dan?
Bolt Crusher Bob and Gear Grinder Greg.
Yeah, not easy. So I think we'll stick with the original. I'm going to take the blue bomber. David Cohen, what are you going to have?
I wonder. Choice. It doesn't leave me much choice, does it?
He'll be the guy in the front row, aisle 2.
All right, so we're going to try. You've seen this now. You've seen the new commercials, right? I mean, they're still running commercials for this game. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's... as I used to hear in high school a lot, it's a lot smaller than they used to be. But they're still fun nonetheless.
But the only thing is...
That was my response.
Very analogous to some other things. But the thing that I would say is that part of the fun we talked about this off the air is missing, kind of. Because when the block gets knocked off, you don't hear that sound anymore. Right?
Right.
Let me knock your block off. Let's see if we can battle it out here. Let's see. You can hear that little...
Your block just got knocked off
so
and
you
no
don't even notice
sound.
it.
Right.
All right.
No sound.
But as the commercial says, you just put it back on and continue.
All right.
So let's just...
Ladies and gentlemen.
I got that.
Right,
I got you. Okay, so we're 1-1. The next one wins. And that's it.
So this is basically you just stand there and just keep pressing the button until somebody's head falls off.
Basically.
So I wonder, how long could you do this as a kid, honestly, without that sound, without the payoff? It doesn't, even for Leo, it kind of lasts a little bit, but this is not one, I don't think, it looks great, and it was one you really wanted as a kid, but when you finally get it, it's not as satisfying a thing as wanting,
I gotta say,
right?
it's, again, back to the size matters things. When these things used to be a lot bigger.
I was just going to say the same thing. It was more fun when they were bigger, because you started off separate, and then you had to kind of get closer and closer to the guy, and your arm reach was greater.
And the sound of the neck going up, of getting the block knocked off.
And am I wrong? Do you think they were made of metal? I'm looking. Let me just block that block off here. I don't think it's made of metal underneath. See, is that metal? That's all plastic. So I think the metal may have added some level of...
It was a sound effect.
It was
a sound effect they had in there.
So, yeah.
Exactly. That's what it sounded like.
So, anyway, it's fun, but it's more fun to look at, I think. Than
It is more fun to look at. It is cool. It's got actual ropes around the ring.
Are you guys tired, though, from your bout?
Yeah.
My thumb hurts a little bit, yeah.
All right, well, let's continue and take a look at the Captain Action figure versus G.I. Joe. Do you remember that? Let's listen to just a smidge of Captain Action first.
Captain Action, so super powerful you can change him into 9 of the mightiest superheroes of all time. Batman, he's the mysterious Phantom. He's the Lone Ranger. He's Flash Gordon, and he's Superman flying to the rescue. Get Captain Action, complete with uniform, sword, and ray gun. Then get his 9 other great superhero outfits. Fighting evil, that's greed, hungry power, lightning speed, Captain Action. He's ideal.
Now, I don't know how ideal he is for parents, because if you remember that Captain Action, you could dress him up, and that was the key to this character. All different outfits. There was a space, astronaut, and all the characters. Batman.
Did you have a Captain Action?
I had a Captain Action. I loved them, but my parents never bought the other 8 outfits.
Oh.
And that's the kid. If you hear that commercial, it's so funny. Parents, by the way, not only are you buying this, you're going to continue to buy these outfits forever.
Right, right.
And that was their shtick. I don't know why they didn't last. I guess because parents didn't want to do that. Did you have that one, Dave?
I actually did not have that one. As I said before, I had tons of G.I. Joes. I had virtually every accessory you can imagine, including perhaps the most annoying toy that any child has ever owned, which was the rubber suit that the G.I. Joe action figure would wear he had like a, what do you call it?
I remember that, like a spear?
Yeah, like a spear gun, and
right.
he had the little flippers for his feet, but you could not get that rubber suit on and off of this doll. It took 4 hours to get the thing on and off. You'd finally take a pair of scissors and just cut him out of it.
Well, that was part of the fun, I think, is the underwater, where we heard that other one, the diving sled. I had the diving sled. I don't know how I got it, actually, because I didn't have G.I. Joes. I had that Captain Action. Maybe my parents mixed and matched a little bit, and that actually went underwater, which was pretty cool.
And it had the 2 propellers on the side. Yeah.
It was very cool. Something to remember. But Captain Action, I think, appealed to me more because it had the superheroes. You could be Batman, Superman, The Flash. I think you were also, what's his name, Flash Gordon. So I enjoyed that aspect of it more than anything else. I think Captain America would be as well. And, of course, G.I. Joe stayed with his military background, whether it was the Navy or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But you could change outfits, and there's a lot more accessories for G.I. Joe.
I think that's where they made all their money. They didn't sell the action figures themselves for all that much money. It was all of the accessories where they made a fortune.
Exactly. But you got to remember this one.
And here is G.I. Joe with Kung Fu Grip. G.I. Joe has hands that grip. Fingers you hold open and let close. Hands that hold on with a Kung Fu Grip. The grip you help Joe use in self-defense. G.I. Joe with Kung Fu Grip. The hands that grip.
Man,
Can you imagine that?
That brings back memories. I mean, come on, guys. The Kung Fu Grip, it's so many jokes for so long in grade school about the Kung Fu Grip.
And it was so lame.
It was.
It was so lame.
Because it didn't really do anything.
I love the way they describe it. Hold the fingers open or the hand open, and it'll close again.
Right.
All right, let me play that, or let me get on, add the tablet
Atari.
play. Yeah, right. We'll play Atari.
Pong was even more interesting.
Pong was hard. Pong was, and I remember when we first got Pong, that was a huge deal. Like on your black and white television set, and the ball would go faster and faster, and the paddle would get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
That's a show for another. That's a topic for another show. That's
We're on the non-electronic. But you know what? Maybe that's the problem with Rock'em Sock'em Robots. They should have interchangeable outfits or robots. That would make this game more interesting, I think.
Like Gear Grinder Greg versus Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, actually, that's a pretty good idea. Even make them into superhero-like type of characters. Because you are competing against. You could do this on a tablet now. You could do these boxing games and what have you on the tablet, and it's a lot of fun. And then they get tired, and you got to.
That would have been a great tie-in toy to the recent Superman versus Batman movie.
See that? That would have been great. Hey, wait, we have some good ideas here. Maybe we can approach, who would this be? Hasbro, I think, for this one? Or Milton Bradley, either way, and propose an upgrade to the Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Interesting.
They haven't had many ideas in the last 50 years.
You heard it here first, folks.
Neither have we, but that's the first one. That might work. We'll be back on Everything Old is New again with Dan Neuburger, David Cohen, Douglas Viviani talking about games. And Star Trek somewhere is in the mix. I don't know how, why. There it is.
This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Slinky toys are fun toys. What walks downstairs alone or in pairs and makes a slinkity sound. A spring, a marvelous thing. Everyone knows it's Slinky. Slinky, it's Slinky. For fun, it's a wonderful toy. It's Slinky, it's Slinky.
Oh, it was cut off again. Something's happening.
It's fun for a girl or a boy.
I was going to say that would be a nice challenge. That is a game or a toy that I think possibly could have a better song and advertisement than the I'm going to call it a game, or toy itself, right?
I completely agree. I could never get that stupid thing to work. The concept was you put it on a step. And
well, let's back up. If you know, it's basically a coil of.
Everyone knows what a slinky is. All right, we know what a slinky is.
It's like a coil of wire,
right?
And the concept was you would hold one end at the top of a stair, and you'd put the other end on the next stair down,
right?
And then let it go. Right. And then it's supposed to progressively walk itself down the stairs. Or
never worked. Right?
Never.
Might go a
worked.
step or two, and then it would bomb out.
It's terrible. And they even had product extensions of it. They had a dog with a head on one side and a tail on the other.
From Toy Story.
Gaylord is the name of the toy.
Gaylord, very
yes.
good. That's right. And I don't understand. They sold millions of those things, and I've never met somebody that said that they enjoyed playing with it.
Well, you do one hand and the other hand. You know what I mean? The
right.
up and down
that's
thing.
The big
that
move,
was
right.
about. That was all. That was it.
And but think about that was made of metal. Now they're made of plastic, so it's lost a little elasticity. And further, they've made them really small. Leo gets them, and Angelica gets them again. They're 7 and 4 when they go to like play dates, and they give them to the kids. So like they're maybe 6 inches, not even 5 inches long. So like, what do you do with now? What do you do with it? Because you certainly can't use it on steps.
So they took a bad toy and made it worse.
Yes,
is what you're saying? That's brilliant.
So that was just Slinky. But I want to tell you, this particular. When I woke up one day and Santa brought me this, I have to tell you, I didn't ignore everybody for the rest of the day. I didn't open any of the presents, and in fact, I played this toy until it broke and almost took my eye out. Let's see if you remember this one.
Vertibird, the new electric-powered copter with rotor blades that actually lift it into flight, and precision controls that make you the Vertibird's pilot. Use your piloting skills to perform even difficult rescues. The Vertibird electric copter comes with space capsule, landing pad, life craft, and astronaut from Mattel.
First, I apologize for the quality of that 1972 commercial. It sounded pretty like underwater.
We got the gist, though.
Yeah. Do you remember that one, Dan?
I vaguely remember it. I think there was a predecessor toy to that one where it was like a little plastic zip line that you would pull out the bottom of this thing, and a helicopter-like rotor would come out the top, and it would float around for a couple seconds until it stopped spinning, and then it would come down.
That, yeah.
And I think this one was, I think it had a battery-operated...
Was the remote control?
Yes, it was a box and it had a... I guess you call it a cord, a hard cord or wire that then at the end of the wire, which maybe was 2.5 feet long, there was a helicopter. Then you had a wire from this box to another control, and it was basically 2 controls, up, down, and forward and backwards. But you would go out and you'd go round and round. That's all it would do, would go in circles. You would tie to that tether, and you would lower it, hover it, try to pick up an astronaut from the sea.
Oh, that's right. Didn't it have... Wasn't the wire that went from the center out to the copter piece like it was almost a more rigid piece of wire, so it would literally just go around in a circle and up and down, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember this thing.
Oh, yeah, okay, that sounds familiar now.
And then you would have a contraption where it had like a hook on the bottom, and you could hook up.
Right.
Basically, you would pick up an astronaut that was, because that was back in the day, in the early 70s, that was floating in the sea after his and his capsule. You would pick the capsule.
The G.I. Joe with his underwater slide.
Exactly. So that, I don't know, for whatever reason, that I went crazy with that. Now these days, kids are getting at the same age, maybe 10 years old, are getting real drones or helicopters and flying them around and taking pictures and doing all kind of stuff. I sat in my kitchen flying this thing in circles for weeks.
For 4 years.
So imagine if I was a kid now, what I would do. I mean,
I think you'd still be playing with the old helicopter. That's my guess.
I have. It's funny. I have no interest in getting like a drone. People love these drones and all this stuff and take. I have no interest in it. I don't know why. Do you have any interest in any of that stuff?
I don't, but I can tell you that my kids do. My son has a drone that actually is in the shape of the Star Trek Enterprise.
Wow!
And he hooks up his GoPro to it. Flies it around the city.
That's cool.
See,
it is pretty cool, I have to say.
That's a man of quality right there. Let's continue with the old toys. Now, it's not really board games, but I just think it's a kick to look at something that's a little bit different. The Aurora AFX racing car.
Only AFX has Magnasonic cars, the only racing cars with sound. That's why Aurora's the one. AFX from Aurora. It's the closest thing to real racing.
Was this the one with the slots?
Yes.
And they would
car.
always fall off of the track if you went too fast?
That's correct.
No, I don't remember that.
Remember the scar that they left on your soul and your
But those
psyche.
were, I mean, come on, those little racing cars, those are huge with boys back
Oh,
then.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
very
They
competitive
actually tried
industry.
to improve it too. I think that said magnetomics or something like that. Where they made a word of it, but they put a magnet
You have to
on
hold
the
it to the
bottom
track,
of it to
right.
try to hold it, so when you went faster, it wouldn't fall off the track. And that was the big thing. And then making a sound like that was that. Forget it.
But that was the big problem with those things, was that the whole objective was to go as fast as you possibly could. But if you went too fast, any
fly
corner,
off
the
the
thing would hit the wall. And,
but you had to have skill. You see, you had to have some skill to slow down around.
it's all about
the turn.
speed.
so.
It's all about speed.
Yeah.
Slow and steady wins the race. That's why I always won those games.
That's why no one ever played with you.
Exactly.
Come on, Doug.
I think so. Did that product come out before or after Hot Wheels turned into Sizzlers?
That came out. Oh, geez, that was about the same time. Explain the Sizzlers.
Okay, so
And we'll get into Hot Wheels and all that in our next show on Everything Old is New Again. We'll continue this next week, but we'll just do a little preview here.
yeah, I think Hot Wheels was basically just the car. It wasn't a motorized car, but it shot through this sort of box that had these wheels that would spin on both sides. And as the car went through, it was accelerated by the force of these two spinning wheels. And there were tracks, but they weren't grooved tracks. They were just flat tracks that were about the width of the Sizzler or Hot Wheels cars. The only difference was, I think, the track that they sold it with, and they called it Sizzlers because it was a new, cool thing to basically upgrade the idea of the Hot Wheels car.
Right. And it would spit it out, and you could also set up another track and do a loop to have it go loop after that.
Yeah, and they had all kinds of, again,
But
product
the problem with that
extensions.
was the problem with that was it ended at some point. In other words, you do the loop to loop, and then the car ran out of energy, and that was it.
Right. Well, they did have one that was an oval track, and you could put the loop-to-loop in the oval track, and in part of the oval track, you could put this device that would accelerate it again. So every time it went around, it would re-accelerate and then go back around. But again, it had the same problem as this one, which was that the cars invariably would go flying off the track.
Right.
But
if you look now, take a look at, like, go to Best Buy, or I guess a toy store, but I've seen it at Best Buy. Aurora still exists. They have you now control the car on the track with your iPhone. And the cars are guaranteed not to fall off the track. They're not in slots. They're on a track that's probably about 6 inches wide. You can make the track however you want it, and the cars will stay on the track as it goes
cool.
around.
I'm stopping on the way
I
home
might
to get that.
too, yeah. Just to get that satisfaction finally after all these years.
Finally, I can get around one time on the track without that damn car falling off.
But you don't have the one has a control, and I think the Aurora one, you use your iPhone or your whatever phone you have and hook it up to the car itself. It makes noises. It has a slick on the track where you slide and lose control a little bit. So, and it's got some sound. So it's really upgraded.
So
great.
can you use your cell phone to hack into somebody else's car and like knock them off the track or something?
I'm sure you could. I don't know if I could do that, but yes, if you have the skill, you definitely could do that. It's pretty cool. They've upgraded that game pretty well. Speaking of games and upgrades, we are going to be right back next week to talk about more games from the past that are now making a resurgence, and if they haven't made a resurgence, they will with our family game nights, and we're going to enjoy a good time with our friend Dan Neuburger from he's in New York City now, but he originally was from high school with us, and we had a great time this week. Come on back, and Everything Old is New Again. We'll have a great time talking card games. What do you think about that, Angelica?
Also, when I grow up, I want to be a movie maker. I want to be a dancer.
Okay.
Bye, Everything Old is New Again, people. Everything's going to be old, new again.
There you go. That's what it's all about.
Also,
The kids. Wait a minute. I
And
don't want to hear from you guys
I
again.
want to be a movie maker.
I know. You told me that. All right. We'll be back, and Everything Old is New Again.